Holly, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so excited to chat to you.
I'm so excited to be here. I'm really excited. It's lovely to start my morning like this.
So we connected online because I started following you after you were in cohort one of the intuitive psychology diploma, and I'm in cohort two. So that's how we connected. And I've now listened to both of your books and I've been following you like crazy on Instagram. And I
Look,
just love how you make self-development and being the best version of yourself so accessible for people. When I was listening to Find Your Confidence, it's honestly the first time I've listened to a book, a personal development book, and I've thought this is literally for anyone.
oh, I love that. That's interesting.
Because so many personal development books, it's like, so if you want to go and have a multi-million pound business, this is what you want to do. Or if you want to go and speak to a stage of thousands, this is what you want to do. But in your book, there was an example that I was just listening to there saying, so if you really want to go to that tap dancing class, like this is what you want to do. And
You know what? I'm
it's
always
funny
trying to
because
think of the
it's
most random things because I'm like, this is not necessarily, it's so easy. Like, you write from what you know, right? Which definitely probably do know tap classes. But like I'm always thinking of like what's the random stuff that people do or want to do. And it might, because I don't want it to be, like you say, always this big massive thing, because not everybody wants that.
yeah.
Not everybody cares about being a £1 million business, whatever, right? They don't care about it. Some people just want a really safe, structured life and they want to have fun things happen in it. And there's absolutely nothing that's fabulous, right? So I'm always thinking when I'm writing and whether that's social media or in books or when I'm doing talks, I'm not saying I speak to everybody in that respect of like in business that like niche down or anything, but I want it to be, I want people to see themselves in it, to see what they might want. Because if it's just me talking massive, like I want to have a global business and I want to, some people are just going to be like, even if they're a business owner or even if they're in that world, it can switch people off and then they don't hear the message. And the wild thing is, if you go at this and you learn the skills to confidence or self-belief or any of that stuff, and you focus it on going to that tap class, you might find that after you realize it works, that you do want to, I'm not saying it has to be this, but a global business, or you are able to do something else. But it starts in the moment that's currently bothering you. I'm too nervous to speak up in a meeting at work, or I'm embarrassed to say what I want in a relationship. What is your difficulty right now? You start there and then you work your way out. But it's the most important thing, and it's such a compliment. And I'm so glad that that's what you took from it. The most important thing for me is in my work that people don't feel kind of pushed out. Like self-development is this other thing. We have to sit in Bali and we have to chant and do crystals. Like, that's great. I'm not slagging that off. That's great, but that's not everybody. Dave from Hull, he's not probably, I mean, Dave from Hull might love crystals and chakra stuff, but I'm not going to pigeonhole Dave. But he might not. And I want people to be able to access this stuff so they can take it and go on their own little journey, whatever that looks like. So I'm always trying to find different ways of doing that. And in my newest book, Find Your Confidence, even though so there's 9 chapters for those that don't know, each is a different area of a dip in confidence that we might have, sort of standard areas: job interviews, social life, work life, parenting, appearance, relationships, standing up for yourself is a huge one, starting new things. So we've got all these areas, but across all of them, the tips that are in each are transferable to anything pretty much. I think there might be the odd one that's specific to that particular thing, but I wanted to make sure that somebody who's not a parent, for example, didn't totally skip that chapter, because one, they've probably got friends that are parents and they might want a bit of knowledge and understanding, but also each thing within that is probably going to give you a life skill that can support you in something else. So yeah, so I'm really glad that you've taken that from my stuff.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. And the thing I love about Find Your Confidence as well is it's a dip in book. Like you can buy it for the chapter of appearance, or you can buy it for the chapter of trying new things. And it can be read like that, each chapter standalone.
Yes,
So
and that
it's
was
really
also
powerful.
important to me. Like I appreciate that we are all really used to going on Instagram and social media, and it's quick fix, and we're busy, all of us. It doesn't matter who you are, we're constantly on the go. And so we're not taking in information like we used to. I could sit here as somebody who writes books and think, well, I want people to sit and read my book in a linear fashion and, and all of that. But that would be ridiculous because most people aren't. I'm not. I often have 2 books on the go at once and just, a scrollable brain. My brain's like that. One book, or I'm bored with that one now. Let's have a look at this book. And that people are reading in the pockets, moments of that, they're reading on the toilet. I know my book will be read on the toilet or stuffed in the side of somebody's, in their car door. And that's when it's supposed to be read. And with both of my books, I've really made sure that you can flick and pick an area and just go for it. And it doesn't have to be, you can read it back to front and you'll still get something from it. And that was important when I was writing stuff, because I want you to actually take stuff from it, not just it be what people call, shelf help, where you buy the book and you're like, I'm a better person. Like when we buy all the notepads and stuff, and we're like, this is me now. I'm a better person because I have a notepad now and a nice fancy pen, and we do nothing with it and nothing changes. So I was, when I'm writing, I'm always thinking, but how is this tangible? Can someone actually take this and do this? And if they can't, then I need to rewrite it because I want them to be able to feel good. Like I want you to have a good life. That's my driver.
Yeah, there are so many good tips in that and really tangible things to actually do as well. And it's funny you say that about shelf help and also about reading a book backwards. That's something that I've done all my life. I start at the back chapter, unless it's a novel.
Because we want to know what the end is. Like, I think we're just like too excited. I do the same. Like, what's going? Like, I don't. And also, I think there's a rebellion in me that I always have. Like, don't tell me how to read something. Like, don't tell me what to do.
Yeah.
So if you tell me to read it from front, I'm going to have a look at the back then because I want to. So actually, even in both of my books, I have actually said, like, read it how you want.
Yeah.
Like that's important. I'm not here to tell you, as much as, as a intuitive psychology coach, as a life coach, life coach is always a word I stay very clear of. I have to sometimes use it because people don't understand what you do otherwise. But I'm really conscious that gives the idea that I'm coming in as some kind of like life guru that's going to tell everybody how to, like, I know, like I've got my shit together. And I just think that's absolutely wildly crazy. And I would never do that. Like that's not my job. My job as a coach is to help people to find their own route. I don't know what that looks like for you. That's going to be different for everybody. So whether it's how you're reading my books or, how you're taking something that I'm teaching online, you've got to do it your own way. You've got to find your own route with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go back a little bit. Tell me your story. So most people will know you from Byker Grove. I loved Byker Grove when I was younger. I used to watch you on TV. And when I saw you doing the intuitive psychology diploma, I was like, I recognize her. How did I recognize her? And then I heard your story. So tell us about how it all started and how you went from being an actress to now being an author and a coach.
Yeah, so I started on TV when I was just 11 years old. And it's so interesting having to reflect it back because it makes me realize that a lot of the stuff that I do now as a coach, I was very, very intuitively using as a young person. And I must really state, like, I came from a normal working class New Geordie family. Like, I didn't come from, some new age hippie family that were doing this stuff. My dad was a welder. My mum worked in a bank. I've got my younger sister, normal working class family. The one thing I can say about my family is we're a family of talkers, as you can probably imagine. And my family is very much about saying what you mean and, standing up for people. So my family, my dad and my granddad were union men and shop stewards. And they would be the ones that would get out and support whoever. So I'm very lucky that I've grown up in a family with really good values and not afraid to speak their mind. That's one thing that I was definitely taught by my family. And one of those things that I was taught by my family was to go out and get what you want. So there's a phrase in Newcastle, which is shy bairns getting out, right? Shy bairns getting out, meaning for those that aren't from the Northeast or maybe even Scotland, would need that translated. It just means if you don't ask, you don't get. A bairn is, for those outside of our circles, it is a child, a bairn. So shy bairns getting out. was what I grew up with. And another saying, grasp the nettle, which is my granddad Matt the cat used to say, grasp the nettle. So go at it, like go for something that feels scary and just go for it. So with that in mind, when I was 10, I wrote a letter to the TV show Byker Grove, which for those outside of the UK, BBC drama, kids drama. And at the time, we probably only had 4 TV channels, so people were watching it. It was a popular show. And I wrote them a letter, which I was given by my parents on my 30th birthday on a canvas. They found it.
Wow.
Which I thought it was like an urban legend, to be honest. I'd started to think, did I actually write that? And apparently I did. And I did write it on the computer because in my mind, I wrote it handwritten, like, because we were from the olden days. But apparently we did have a computer at the time. And I wrote it in Comic Sans, the font. I know, designer dies every time we use it. And I wrote this letter and it said, my name is Holly and I'm an actress. And there was no doubt in that. I'm an actress. I'm affirming it completely. And then this big long letter about how I'm not shy one bit, it says in it, and I'm an actress and I do my drama, Saturday morning drama group. And then at the very bottom, it said I would like a part on the show, obviously stating what I wanted. And then at the bottom, it just says, P.S. please write back soon. And they did. We wrote back to me and they got me in for an audition. And I auditioned about 6 times, didn't get the part. But not at one point did I think, that's it, then that's me done with acting. Like I've failed. I'm useless. I'm not a good actor. What I thought was, then it's doable. And it's doable because I got on set and I was around the other actors. So it's doable. So I try again. 6 months later, they wrote a part in for me. And I was on that TV show for 7 years. So all of my growing up was on TV. So 6 months of the year I would be filming and 6 months of the year I would not be filming and it would be on TV. And it's funny because at 40, to be still talking about the first ever job that you did is wild. And my sister will say, are you still dining out on that? Are you still dining out? And I'm like, I am still dining out on that. But the funny thing is that it really, I mean, it literally shaped my life. It changed everything for me. Not only did it put me on the path to being an actor, which is what I wanted to do, but it changed, the experiences that I had, the people that I was around. I learned to be around adults. I learned how to advocate for myself at a young age. I was able, most importantly, to be around people that were like me. And so when I was at school and I felt like this weird alien and this, this creative, weird, odd kid who was masking and trying to fit in, I didn't feel like that when I was on set because I was around people. And so it gave me a space that I felt safe and a space where I could be myself. And so I started, that was, where I started. And I never thought that I would do anything else but acting. And I left Byker Grove, I signed to Sony. So I did singing for a while. I did Top of the Pops and MTV and all of this amazing stuff, which feels a little bit like a different lifetime right now. Mostly because I did a lot of it on my own. There was no one with me. It was just me. And so some of that stuff, I'm like, did that happen? Okay, I was recording in Marbella in, like with Britney Spears as ex-producer, or like some of that stuff, it's kind of blanked out my head because it was busy and constant. And so I was doing that. I then went on to do Waterloo Road and Doctors in the Bill and Casualty and kind of bounced around doing acting jobs and was doing what I wanted to do. I also went to drama school. I missed that bit out, but I went to drama school for a while after doing singing and then dropped out because I was sneaking off to do auditions. So I got into one of the top drama schools in the UK and then dropped out within a year. And not because it was bad, it was a great school, but I got a part on Waterloo Road and because I was sneaking off for auditions and so I left and followed that path, trusted that instinct that it was the right thing for me. And so for a time I was doing, the work that I wanted to do. I met my husband Ross and then at 26, I became a mom and then a mum of two daughters, Brooke and Texas. And then we went through about 6 years of life throwing some shit at us. And it felt suddenly, life really hard. And we went from, so my first daughter broke, I had her early. She was 6 weeks early in special care, premature. I had preeclampsia. So I was rushed into hospital. When she was 3 months old, she got meningitis, and we went through that, and she was absolutely fine, and thank goodness for that. But she was really tiny. So she was 3 months old, but the size of like a newborn, because she was then my second daughter, we found out I had an autoimmune disease, which was why the preeclampsia had happened. So I had to inject blood thinners in my stomach for the whole of the pregnancy, and was really high risk. We got her here. And then Texas was a year old, and we found out that my husband Ross had grade 4 brain cancer, rare brain cancer. And we then went on this journey of cancer and brain surgeries and chemo and radio and seizures, and our whole world was completely flipped upside down. In 2017, Ross died of brain cancer. And once again, me and my daughters went on this new journey. And for me, in terms of self-development, when Ross was diagnosed, I stopped acting. I didn't even know why I wanted to do it. Like, it was such a switch in my mind that was switched off. And I started to talk about self-development, something I'd always done for myself as an actor, and just the highs and lows of everything I'd done. And I just started to talk openly about it to people. And I found that people gravitated towards how I spoke about it. And I guess the relatability of it, you know, we talked at the beginning, and the accessibility of it, because I wasn't trying to do it to make myself sound clever. I was just trying to help people and to reach people. And I found it was a very organic process. And when Ross was dying, I was channeling that pain into finding something good. And I'm a person that when times are hard, I create, I don't consume. And I don't consume all of the stuff. And I go into my bubble, and I just create things that feel like something good. And for me, while Ross was dying, it was, how do I make sense of this, so this painful thing that is unfathomable does something good? And so the Happy Me Project, which is my business now, kind of came off the back of that, in that after Ross's death, there was a lot of press around Ross's death, and it was in all national newspapers, and there was a lot of eyes on, and people reaching out and going, I'm going through this, how do I get through this? Whether it was grief, whether it was just, you know, life being hard. And I wanted to give them something tangible. And so the first thing I did for the Happy Me Project was this like one-off course that I literally put together, like recording it on my phone at the bottom of the stairs with notes scribbled on the back of an envelope. And I put together this 21-day audio, a few videos course with a few checklists. It was really simple, £30 course, pushed it out into the world. And then when people would ask me what I did, I was like, this is the basics of what I do. Like, this is the things that I do to not lose my mind. You can try them, you can use what you need, take what you need, leave what you don't. And it just gained legs. This little course gained legs, and I got more and more people, this kind of snowball effect of it. And then by the end of, after Ross died, the end of 2017, I started to do workshops of the same name, and it snowballed to where we're at today. But it feels almost like there's this world of acting that, and then there was this split off. But for me, it didn't feel as big a split off as it does to everybody else, because I'd always done self-development. I'd just done it for me, because as the kid on the telly, it was hard to navigate that. And so I was seeking, like a lot of people are, you know, maybe sometimes it comes later on in life, but for me, I was an old soul at 11 and 12. And so I was looking, how do I not feel shit? And I did sometimes feel like that, because I felt different to my peers. I felt odd. I felt like the weird kid that was just trying to fit in. And at the time, I also didn't know I was neurodivergent. Makes sense looking back now, some of the difficulties, but I was just seeking and trying to find ways. So for me, it doesn't feel as big a split as it did to everybody else. In fact, I think the acting world and the self-development world, the creative spaces there's a reason why there's a lot of actors that go into that kind of space. It's all about the brain, right? And getting to know people. So there is no easy explanation to how I've got to where I am. I've lived 100 lives, and it feels like it sometimes.
Oh my goodness, you've achieved so much. And The thing that really stands out to me there is when in 2024, your husband sadly passed away in 2017, and
Yeah.
that's when you changed your whole trajectory of your career. You've achieved so much in 7 years.
It's
And that's been
actually,
the hardest time of your life as well.
yeah. And it's only really, yeah, it's quite weird to reflect on it. And I hadn't even thought about the time scale of it. But in 7 years, there's been a lot. Like there has been a lot. There's been a lot of stuff. And this is why for me, when I know such power can come out of pain. And I like resilience and bounce back, not in a stoic way, not no tears. Believe me, I've cried. I probably cried today. Like I cry all the time. I feel emotions. It's not about stoicism or just keep going. It's not about that. And actually, the one thing I can say from Ross's death, I really recognize, and this is obviously the work that I've done, and again, when in training in intuitive psychology as well, has given me a deeper level of understanding of my process and how I've done that and why that's worked. But I look at up until the point of Ross's death, my default had been fight. My default had been I will come out swinging. And it had served me. It's not to say that these things don't serve us, right? When I was the kid on the telly and I learned to be the loudest, the strongest, the one that can own any room if she needs to, the one that will be hyper vigilant to know what everybody's moves. I learned all of that stuff and it served me. It served me well. It got me to places. It taught me to be confident. It taught me how to look confident. This is why my new book is really a very full circle thing for me, because I learned how to look confident. I learned how to own a room. I understood how to do that. I had to do a lot more work on the internal stuff. That took longer. But when Ross died, I had this kind of talk with myself where I remember sitting thinking, right, okay, this is the next stage. Like, how are we going to do this? And I knew that I could tap into fight. I knew I could come out swinging. For years, I'd done that with when Ross was ill, when I had 2 babies under 3 and a husband with brain cancer and businesses. I was swinging. Life was coming at me and I was going, all right, come on then, let's do this. I'll step up. I'll work harder and faster than anybody else. And yes, you can move things like that, but there's a price. There's a price internally. There's a price with the anxiety levels that you feel. There's a price for all of that. There's a price with the disconnection that you feel to those outside of you. And I felt that because there was a wall between me and people because they could see this version of me and I wasn't always that version, and I wasn't that version internally. And yes, I was strong, and yes, I am strong. I'm a strong person, but I'm also a very deep emotional human being, and I wasn't always allowing space for that. And so when Ross died, I remember thinking to myself, what are you going to do and what are you going to bring here? And I realized that I had this real life lesson of, if Ross is dead, then I don't understand the world, because the world that I understood had Ross alive in it. This vibrant human being who was a big character, and now he's dead. And if he can die like that, then I don't understand anything. It doesn't make any sense. So if I don't understand anything, then I have to strip everything back and I have to be open and vulnerable and listen and learn. And so I decided to try to, I guess a lot of it was an unmasking process of allowing some vulnerability in, and not only allowing vulnerability in terms of other people, but allowing myself to not spend my time shaming myself about the ways that I had to do things or how I coped with things or how I lived my life, trying to make everything look a certain way to appease everybody else because it was causing me anxiety. And so over these 7 years, I have lent into more than ever and spoken openly about my own difficulties, my own challenges, that my mess, my chaos, the stuff that doesn't look so pretty. And by doing that, outside of me, other people, I think initially sometimes felt, you've got almost this, I don't know how to phrase this, but like you've got worse, you're more erratic, you're more chaotic. But actually, for me personally, that was always me. I was just doing a really fucking good job of hiding that from everybody else, which internally was causing me problems. So it was almost like this feeling of, no, I'm going to give it all back. I'm not going to house this inside of me anymore. If you cannot deal with this, then you can fuck off. If
Love
you
that.
can't deal with this, that you are not my people. And that, you know, the more we lean into that, the more we go, this is me, right? The mess, the chaos, the whatever we are, the funny, quirky things that we do, I'm just going to give it all back. And if you can hold space for it, then cool. Come on in, we'll hang out and we'll be friends. If not, that's okay. And I think for me, it was that space of vulnerability that's actually allowed me to do big stuff because I'm wasting less time on anxiety of people pleasing and trying to be a certain way for other people. And I'm also learning, and this is, as we know, all of this stuff is constant learning. I'm always on that journey. You know, I'm learning to recognize when the fight is necessary. I'm not afraid of the fight, but also when it's okay to go, I don't want to. I'm going to just take a step back, and it's okay to do it in a different way. And I don't have to do it in the way that person's doing it. You know, this week I was doing a live session with somebody, and she said to me, you know, do you have like a business plan and a strategy and all of this stuff for the next few years and where you going next? And and in the past I'd have given a bullshit lie of an answer that I maybe did. I have barely got a clue what I'm doing at the end of the year. Like I don't always know. I do things with impulsivity and heart, and sometimes that works, and sometimes that's not the best strategy. But there's not one route to this. You know, there'll be somebody that will have this, like orchestrated, strategized 10-year business plan, lots of people working with them and all of that. And that's brilliant. And, you know, maybe I can do with a dollop of that sometimes. But equally, I've got this far and I've never really planned anything very far in advance. And I've just went, I want to do that. And I would like to do this. And I'd like to write a book. And I'd like to have this happen. I'd like to do a TED talk. I'd like to do. And the curiosity and that curious mind and a bit of, you know, balls about me, that's helped. That's served me. So, you know, I can't slag that off. And it's only when I sort of stop for a minute and do things like this where I go, oh yeah, it's only been 7 years. Actually, there's quite a lot of stuff that's happened. So I should take a step sometimes and notice that.
It blows my mind talking to you because you've achieved so much. And I just love how honest and open you are about all of that because it's relatable. Because even earlier we were talking about writing books, and I'll ask you more about writing the book because I think everyone listening to this would love to hear the process of writing a book. But in fact, just tell me the story again because you described yourself as danger mouse when it came to writing the book. You were like, I only think about things 2 minutes before it happens.
I really do. I mean, it's a little scary sometimes. I'm like, I'm about to go on stage and I'm just like, do I know what I'm going to say? We'll see. We'll see what comes out. But yeah, with the book, so I knew I wanted to write. I always knew I wanted to write a book, actually. I used to think when I was younger, like, it'll be for the book. Like, and I know some people would think, oh, that's so egotistical perhaps, or I don't know, I just knew it would. Like, I live my life in stories, I always have, and so I think I'm on the Truman Show. Like, I just think I'm not sure any of this is real sometimes, which sounds a bit mental. Maybe it's the actor brain in me, but I always knew there was like a story, and I knew how I wanted it to feel. I always knew it would be a self-development book, and I knew that I would want people to just be able to grab it and use it and try something, and it would be actionable. I even had an idea in my mind how it would look. Like, I knew the first book would be like a white cover. And like, I had an idea. I mean, I'm not the designer of the book, but I just had this feeling of what it was going to be like. And I'd kind of said it for years. And there was 2 things that happened that kind of prompted me to properly go for it. The first thing was, I went on Lorraine Kelly's show after Ross died to talk to Lorraine a couple of times. And I think it was the second time I went on. And one of the producers said to me, you should write a book. And I said, oh, I've already put it together. When I've written it, can I come back and talk about it? And she was like, yeah, of course. I had not written a damn thing, not a damn thing. I was lies. I just said that because I thought it's accountable and I'll just get my thing in so I can come back. But that kind of prompted me because it's like, okay, maybe there's a thirst for it. Maybe there's a want for it. So I started to kind of put that out there, the idea of it. And there was a couple of people that gave me a little support in terms of putting the proposal together. So for those that don't know, if you're writing a book that's not a fiction, you'll write a kind of proposal, like your idea, how you're going to market it, perhaps, what famous people you could bring in, where you're going to sell this book to, who's it for, all of that kind of stuff. And I had no clue about any of that. I had no idea. In fact, on my kitchen island, I remember I sat with a friend of mine who's a marketing expert, and we had all the stuff out, and he said to me, so what do you want? And I said, well, I want to be number one, no bullshit, self-development coach in the UK, then the world. And I want Happy Me TV. And we put this at the kind of top. And then we're like, so how do we make that happen? And like, okay, well, I want to write a book. So that was my next thing. And I was like, I want it to be with a big publisher. I don't want to self-publish it. Not that there's anything wrong with that. They're just two different ways of going at it. I wanted a publisher. I wanted, one of the big boys. Again, no idea how to do this. Literally no experience. I don't know anybody who's done this at the time. I do now, but I didn't at the time. So I'm like, this is what I want. I'm going to work it out. And then I was connected with another lovely connection, Nick Pigeon, another coach, who was a positive psychology coach, who's from Newcastle as well. We were connected together. Sadly, we were connected by one of our lovely friends who died by suicide, and has prompted Nick's new book. So if you haven't checked that out, it's called, oh my God, the name's just fallen out my head and I can see it. It's going to come back to me in a second. But anyway, check out Nick's new book. It's all on suicide prevention. And we were connected by this particular friend, Sophie. And so Sophie connected us, and Nick sent me her template to her proposal, how she did it, and a course that she put together on writing a book, which was really generous of her. And so I had these like little signs of things to kind of go and do it. And I then put it out on social media that I was going to do this book. And I said, I've written this proposal. Again, talking about the things that we want. We've got to talk about it. Even though I was scared, every time I said it, I was embarrassed because I thought, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea. I was embarrassed about it. So it was like, because once you've said it, you've got to do something, and that's scary. So I said it on social media. And then I got an inbox message off a lady called Holly, right? And she probably stood out in my inbox because we have the same name. And it looked like previously I had sent her a message, I think about like confidence in a presentation. I think it was something like that, interestingly. And I'd probably only messaged because she was called Holly and she'd stood out. And it wasn't her work account, it was her personal account. So she sent me a message and said, would you like to put your proposal to me? I work for Bloomsbury Publishing. And I was like, Bloomsbury as in like Harry Potter, Bloomsbury Publishing, like Bloomsbury Publishing. And I'm thinking, is this like Floomsbury? Like, is this like a shady version? Have I got mixed up? And I'm Googling it. And as I'm Googling, I realized, no, it is actually Bloomsbury Publishing, one of the biggest publishers in the world. So I threw my phone across the room in a panic. Like, oh, I'm going to have to put my proposal to Bloomsbury Publishing. What if it's shit? Like, and anyway, I did. And this was just before pandemic time. So end of 2019, put it to her. And then we went into bloody lockdown. So I get all this message like, oh, we don't know what's happening. Nobody does. We're out of the office. And I'm like, whatever. We'll see letting go. We're dealing with a global pandemic, right? Weren't we? So I'm like, I'll put it out there. And then during the pandemic, I was getting like a message, oh, we've taken it to the market and like it seemed they're really interested. We're just going to have a little conversation. And I had zero expectation. One, I've never done it before. I don't know what the process is. And I live in a world of, as an actor, you can get so far down the line for a major Hollywood film and then dropped. So I'm like, I'm penciled, right? That's how I was thinking it. And then we were in the middle of lockdown. It was that time when we were just getting to the point where we could go to the tip. And that was about it. And it was like a day trip out to go to the tip. And we were like, woo, go to the tip today. Woo-hoo. So I was like going to my girls, because I'm this kind of fun mom. I would make a big deal and they'd get really annoyed because I'd go, we're going to the tip. Woo-hoo, get some stuff. Let's go. And like do some, like I was just clearing shit out. And so this one day I get this email through off Holly, my editor, and it just said offer as the title. And I was like, oh, got an offer. And then I went into my daughter's room and I went, guys, I've got some really exciting news. And I had been explaining to them the process. And they were like, oh, Mom, we're not going to the tip, are we? What? I don't want to go to the tip. That was my only exciting thing at the time, guys. Woo-hoo! I was like, no, I've got an offer from Bloomsbury Publishing. And so I wrote it during lockdown, which again, ridiculous. Like, how to do that with juggling homeschooling and everything else. But I did. And the book came about, and this is what I was explaining to you before. When I decided I wanted to write it, I knew how I was going to feel, but I hadn't written it. So during lockdown, I'd been going live every day in my Facebook group and online and just trying to give back. Again, times of crisis, I create, I don't consume. So I was like, look, I can do this. I can show up. I'm good in this. I'm not even stressed out about this. Like, it wasn't, as a person who's quite comfortable with their own company, it initially wasn't that big a deal for me. I was fine. Obviously longer term, we were all not, but I was doing all this stuff and I was doing all these lives. And because I'm Danger Mouse, as I said to you, I would get my pen and paper out before, I'd get me little post-it notes, and somebody might have said, I'm struggling with anxiety on this, or the confidence for this, or whatever. And so I'd be like, 5 minutes before, kids probably screaming about breakfast, trying to get them set up on some bloody Zooms thing or whatever. And then I'd be writing down ideas, scribbling ideas. Okay, maybe they could try this technique and this, and then I'd go live. And it was like last minute stuff. And I created this because I am messy as a human being. And I just like, if it's out of sight, it's out of mind, right? So I was putting shoveling all these notes in this drawer, and then all these post-it notes. And then eventually, when I was sitting down to kind of write a more strategic plan for this book, which was 60 chapters, the first one, each one just small chapters, I just took out all of these post-it notes and we're like, I think the book is that. I just think it's that. I'll just get them all out, peel them off, and work out which one of these is going to be the most important. And I literally sieved through them all and was like, right, that's a common theme. This is probably something we should talk about. But it wasn't anything more pretty than that. And it was done within the pockets of time that I had in between everything else. And I would just write quickly and then I would walk away from it. The hardest process for me in writing is editing, because in my mind, I wrote the book, I gave you the manuscript, I'm done now. That's me done. I did the book now. So having my poor editor like have to send me stuff back, and they'll get you to look at certain things. Could you just reword that maybe? Or should we cut this and add this in there? All of that stuff. That to me is like hell on earth. Like, that is not creative. I hate it. It feels like I'm in school, I'm being told off. And my editor is absolutely lovely, and she's the most nourishing and kind human being, and does not make you feel horrible at all about that stuff. But that's the hardest bit. So yeah, so that's how the first book came about. And in my mind, I mean, whether they'll let me do a third, we'll wait and see. I've got to sell enough of this next one. Find Your Confidence, shameless plug. But in my mind, I've already got, and this is how my visual mind works, a whole colorful bookshelf of books that will be like, I really did go with just like how they will look on the bookshelf. And I just think it would be lovely if it was like a rainbow. So people need to buy my books so that I can create a rainbow of books on different topics, and we can have rainbow bookshelves. So
that sounds beautiful. Rainbow bookshelves is the goal. So that's the next thing. You'd love to keep doing books.
I would, yeah. I would like to keep doing books. I love writing. I love the process of writing. It's an absolute like dopamine high to know that somebody across the globe has read that book and got benefit from it. And I was saying to you before we started recording, like, I never don't get excited. Like, for me to know, I already know that the newest book, Find Your Confidence, is going to be published in Mexico. I know that a publisher's there has already picked it up. That's really wild to me. That somebody's going to be reading that in Spanish. That It's already been translated into German. It's out in Hungary. It has has been translated into Arabic. Like, that's like mind-blowing to me. That this is the great thing about a book, right? I believe truly, and I know some of your listeners will have a book in, like, I believe everybody has a book in them. You've all had life experience that people can learn from, whether you want to do that on a global scale or you want to just write it for your kids. Like, my dad has written a book, and whether he'll publish it, it's not in his mind to do that. It was something he's a really good writer. When I was younger and he used to work on the oil rigs, he used to write us letters. You know, we didn't have, I'm doing this like typing. He was writing, he went typing. He would write us stories and he would send them to me, my sister back home. And he was always good at writing. And so he wrote, and it's so clever. I'm totally going to let people will totally steal this idea because I think it's genius. But he has written, and I've read some of it, and it's, as a daughter, it's so fascinating to read. But he's written a book, and each chapter is a different house he lived in growing up and then into adulthood, and each house has a story attached to it, and it's really clever. And even if he did that just for himself to write and to have something to, you know, like a process and I guess a legacy, and that's what a book is, right? You know, and I really truly believe that everybody has a story in them, and there's such power in that. You know, as I say, whether it's for you yourself, and we're journaling and we're doing that, or whether it's for your children or your family or outside of that, you've got something to say. Everybody has something to say. And I'm genuinely fascinated about people's stories. I don't know, I'm sure you are the same, but I love it. I love hearing people's stories. I love their weird quirk. We can all learn from that. So it's a beautiful thing. And for my daughters, you know, when I, particularly the second book, Find Your Confidence, I 100% had my daughters in mind when I was writing that. I want, my daughters are now 11 and 13. I want them to be confident, stand up for themselves, know who they are. I want them to be their weirdest self and to do whatever they feel is good to them in their lives. And although my oldest daughter, who is very direct, she's autistic, she says it how it is, she went, I'm not going to read it. I'll flip to the bits I'm in. And I'm like, oh, brilliant. My youngest did say she was trying to read some of it. She read some of the first one. But you know, I'm confident that in the future maybe they will look at it, and I'll be able to indoctrinate them in a good way somehow.
Of course, they're going to read it one day, maybe not yet, but it's going to make such a difference in their lives and the lives of so many people. So, just to wrap up, Holly, the people who are listening to this podcast, it's all about helping you go after your goals while you're running after your kids, which you have a thing or two to say about. There's so many women out there who end up in a position that they're just a little bit stuck in their career. They're like, I've had kids, now what? Like, now who am I if I'm not their mum? And they're on that brink of they'd love to make a change, but they just don't really know where to start. They don't really know what the first step is. They don't know how to start moving forward. What would your advice be to those people?
Oh, absolutely. And they're my people. Like, I totally feel that. And it's so many women. It's so many. We give so much of ourselves to other people. We give so much of ourselves to our children. And that's beautiful. It's an amazing thing. But sometimes we neglect who we are, and we maybe haven't even given ourselves time to get to know who we are and to explore that. In my book, there is a whole chapter on starting something new. And I think that's probably a really good starting point, because sometimes we have an idea. So we might think, oh, I kind of have a little curiosity about this. I'd like to kind of explore that. Or we maybe just have no idea. And I think when we have no idea, don't see that as a negative. See that as, how exciting is that? I'm a completely blank slate. I don't really have any idea what I'm going to be at this next stage in my life, because we can get so stuck in the story that it's all negative, that it's like, you know, I'm nobody, I don't know who I am. We can have all this negative talk around that, when in fact we can reframe it and realize how exciting. I'm about to go into this new chapter of my life and I've no idea what that's going to be. And it could be something incredible. And there are a million stories of people later in life having achieved incredible things, having not done anything before. And that would be a nice starting point, just some like homework on looking at those people, because there's tons of them. But I would start by looking at trying lots of things, right? And not having the expectation that this is going to be the thing, because it might not be, but it might be a good story, or it might be something that you go, I never, ever want to do that again. That was terrible and I hated it. But start to explore and put yourself in new situations where you can talk to different people. Now, depending on your levels of confidence currently, that will be different for everybody. It might be going to that tap class that we started talking about at the beginning and going, I've got no bloody idea about tap. I don't even know if I would want to do that ever, but I'm going to do something different. I'm going to go somewhere different. Even if it's as simple as I'm going to go to a different coffee shop this week and I'm going to try and have a conversation with somebody different. Starting to get to know who you are is really important. Also, I would say start to look at the stories that you are currently telling yourself about you. Because we often will find, I mean, stories come up for me forever. Like, I am a storyteller in acting, in my coaching work, in my writing. And I know that whatever story I'm telling myself is the story that I will live in. And this is the key, right? So if you look at your current story and you're feeling stuck, there's a word that we'll hear a lot as coaches. I'm feeling stuck. I don't know where to go next. I'm just feeling stuck. So explore, what does stuck mean? What does that feel like? What does that look like? Where did that come from? When did you not feel stuck? Where in your life have you felt not stuck? And you might think, well, actually, I didn't feel stuck when I was doing that thing. I felt really like good there. I was doing this one thing. And even if it's being a parent, I felt really good when I was being a parent. Okay, so what is it about being a parent? Maybe it's that you like caring. Maybe it's that you liked the constantness of it, like you like the busyness, the adventure of it. It is an adventure. What is the constant adventure? I've had 2 kids scrapping this morning over who would French plait whose hair and all sorts going on here. But look at and explore, well, what excited me about that? What made me feel stuck? What made me feel free? And explore these things, get to know yourself, and don't be afraid to go down a route and it to be, you know what, I don't actually love this. I'm gonna double back, or I'm gonna go this way now. We often pigeonhole ourselves. And we say, well, this is who I am because this is who society thinks I am. And we think, well, if I do this now, what's everyone going to say? If I suddenly say I'm going to do that, like what will Brenda from work think? What will Claire, who I went to school with, think? I don't give a shit what they think, and neither should you, because they're too busy. Firstly, Claire and Brenda don't really give a shit about you in the way that you think that they do. They've got their own stuff going on. Brenda and Claire might be feeling stuck as well, right? And they're exploring their own stuff. But we have to start looking at exploring who we are at this stage in our life, not what we thought we were going to be, not who everybody else thinks we should be, none of that stuff. Just explore, what are my likes, what are my dislikes? Notice where you just go with other people's opinions because you don't really have one of your own. And because I often have women that will say to me, I don't have an opinion on that. Yes, you do. You do. You have an opinion on it because we have an opinion on everything. Even if we could say, my opinion is I don't give a shit about it. That's your opinion. That's still an opinion. But I find it fascinating that I will work with some people and they will be so used to people pleasing. They've done it for so long and they literally cannot tell me whether they like Diet Coke or Pepsi without worrying that I'll judge what their decision is on that. And my starting point, and I definitely talk about it in my new book, is in fact, I probably relate all things to a cup of tea, right? It's some way. Talk about cups of tea a lot, right? And you maybe heard me talk about it in the book, but I use a cup of tea as my litmus test for if we are people pleasing. If somebody says to me, if I say to somebody, sorry, in my house, how do you have your cup of tea? Or your coffee, but I'm just going to go for British cup of tea, right? How do you have your cup of tea? And that person says to me, however it comes, I know that they likely accept their life however it comes. When you come to my house, now bear in mind, my husband was autistic, my daughter's autistic, I'm ADHD, my other daughter, Texas, is a little, she's neurotypical-ish, is she? We're very direct in my household. We say what we want, we say what we think. So when my husband was alive, in fact, there is actually a video of him on YouTube making a cup of tea in a very specific way, which is very specific to what he likes. When you come to my house, you will be asked, how do you have your cup of tea? What color do you have? You find something in this house that's the color of your cup of tea and point it to me. Tell me what color you want your cup of tea. I have mine black with the tea bag left in. That's extreme, I know. But how do you have your cup of tea? Do you have sugar in it? Do you have sweetener in it? Do you have it really milky? I will judge you if it's really milky, but we can laugh about it. There's a horrible really milky. No, but anyway, you have it how you want it. And then I'll ask you, what cup do you want it in? Do you want it in a big thick mug, or do you want it in like my little fancy fine bone china ones? It's up to you, but I want you to have a nice cup of tea. I want you to enjoy your cup of tea. And all too often, we just keep saying, it's okay, I'll have it however. But that's not how life is great. Life is great when you have the cup you want, you have the tea you want, and that scales out across everything. So start looking at, in those micro moments of a cup of tea, or when somebody says they love Game of Thrones and you think, I've never seen that, I've never seen it. I don't care. I don't care. I don't want to watch it. It doesn't excite me. Not interested. I also haven't seen Peaky Blinders. I know it's going to upset people. I've never seen a James Bond, and maybe I will one day on my own terms. And that I've never read Harry Potter. I've seen half a film of Harry Potter. It's upsetting to people, and that's okay, because when we talk about the things we like and we don't like, or we care for and we don't, we attract the right kind of people into our life and we have nice experiences. So start there. Start with getting to know you, exploring, looking at the stories you're telling yourself, noticing where those stories are holding you back from this new stage. Be open-minded about what you could be, because you don't know. We've all been in this position where either we, or even if we can look at somebody else and go, like, that was surprising that they did that. Wow. And we can think of ourselves, I can't, as parents, let's put it that way. As parents, how much have you surprised yourself as a parent? Where you think, I don't know how I did that. Yeah. Pushing a baby out, or having a C-section. Neither of those things that's a big deal, isn't it? Like, all of those things, they're all a big deal, but we do them constantly. We've done them. So let's surprise ourselves in new ways at this new stage in our life. That would be my advice. And I know that people will get so much from your podcasts. And I really think even just the exploration of listening to stuff like this it's a really good start. It's a starting point, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. If someone is listening to this thinking, she is my cup of tea, Holly is my cup of tea, where can they find you?
Well, they can find me on social media. I am Holly Matthews on most things. I am hollymatthews.com/all my stuff. You'll find a load of stuff on there. You'll find my books. You'll find my membership, the Happy Me Project membership. I'm going to be doing lots of things on confidence. I have some confidence workshops online coming up. So if they follow me on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok, where I'm not in the millions like my daughters would like me to be. So in their mind, I'm a complete failure on TikTok. I'm putting content out there on there as well. But come and say hi. Let me know that you came from this podcast. I'd love to know your thoughts. I am accessible. I try to be where I can, and I want everybody to win. We've all got there's room for all of us. So come and say hi to me, and make sure to help me get this rainbow bookshelf. Find your confidence. Go and get your book. You will love it. It's on Audible as well as in actual book form. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Holly. Thank you for your time. It's been absolutely wonderful. And we'll see you soon.
See you soon. Take care.